Right, we're now live.
Hello,
How
everyone.
exciting.
I'm Marco.
I'm Mandy.
Welcome to our session. We're going to speak to you about a few things today. We're going to speak to you about our professional development programme. We're going to speak to you about teaching overseas, and we're going to speak to you about our relationship with the Chartered College of Teaching. We're both teaching, as you can see on the screen, at North London Collegiate School. So while people are tuning in and getting ready, Mandy is going to give you a little overview of our school and its history.
So you can see that we're in Dubai, where we've had the Burj Khalifa right outside. But North London Collegiate has a very old, rich history. The first school in London was opened up in 1850 by a fantastic young woman called Frances Mary Buss, who decided in her mid-20s that girls weren't getting the education that she thought they deserved in science and maths instead of just needlework. So she decided to start a school in her father's basement in Camden. Quickly outgrew that basement and moved into the current location that is in Edgware in North London. And it's a phenomenally successful school. And a few years ago, about 14 years ago, the then headmistress, Bernice McCabe, who was a wonderful woman, decided that she wanted to start an international wing. And now we are further down the line, and we've got a school in South Korea. I will talk a little bit more about that later. A school in Dubai, a school in Singapore, and a new school that's just opened in Ho Chi Minh. So North London Collegiate has an amazing, rich history in British education, but also in international education. And so that's where we are speaking from today.
And of course, Mandy is going to tell us a little bit later, because she was one of the founding teachers at the school in Jeju. So when we get on to her international education, we'll be looking forward to what she's got to say about that. To introduce myself a little more, I started teaching 22 years ago. My first job was in Kuwait. Then I went on to work in America at the British School of Chicago at the time. And I have been in Dubai for quite a long time, working as director of music in another school, and then coming on to being vice principal director of studies here. Among my duties are overseeing the professional development programme, and that's what I'm here to talk to you today about, as well as my experiences of working abroad.
So I trained, more than 22 years ago, and I trained as an English teacher and worked in London for over a decade, worked as an AST, and then as a secondary consultant before leaving to found the school, as Marco said, with my husband in Jeju in South Korea, which was an incredible experience. And they were there for a few years, and then we've come to Dubai to set up the school here. I have a role that's very particular to North London schools. It's called professional tutor. And it's a fantastic role that allows me to support Marco with PD, but also to offer individualized coaching to specific teachers that want it or are required it. So it's a really lovely role. It's sort of a bit like the old AST role, but very much in response to the needs of the school at that time.
So why the CCT, and why did we get involved with them? Well, quite a number of years ago, when the CCT first came and crashing onto the scene, I applied to be a member and then part of the founding fellows, and I really enjoyed the values of the organisation. I think the values of the organisation are so important for teachers around the world, but especially when you're teaching abroad. When you're teaching abroad, you want to have that link to what's happening in the UK. You want to be involved in the latest conversations in education, what's happening within those conversations, and you want to make sure that you're current. Teachers like Mandy and I have both been abroad for quite a long time, and I think we're probably going to be abroad for the rest of our careers. But many teachers only come abroad for a few years, and it's really important when we go home. And I think being a member or being a fellow shows your employers that you're committed to that, and that you share the values that hopefully they would like you to have. We've had real enthusiasm in the school. In fact, we count ourselves very lucky to have 7 fellows amongst our school, which is the most in the Middle East, and we've worked with quite a lot of other fellows from other schools. And that network that the Chartered College provide, not just within the UK but throughout the world, is really interesting as well. In fact, they put me in touch with a really interesting group of fellows in the Far East as well, with whom we've had meetings and shared some practice with. So there's excellent opportunities to link to people around the world and use this fellows network and members network as part of what you're doing.
So we move on to the next bit about both of us have big roles within professional development. And I think, as Marco's alluded to, when you teach overseas, sometimes you can feel a little bit distant from developing yourself as in the same way that you would if you were in the UK. I used to love those AQA conferences. You'd go and get really nice lunch and you get to go out of school and go to a hotel for the day and meet lots of other teachers. We don't have that really out here. So I think, the charter college has given us an opportunity to do that. But now what Marco's going to do is explain what PD looks like in our school from a very sort of like up here level to my micro level. Not at the bottom, but on the day-to-day basis, not at the bottom at all. No. Right. So RPD in school, it's quite impressive.
So what we've decided to do at North London Collegiate School is that we wanted to consider what all different types of PD are and what they mean to our teachers and what the actual function of them is. Of course, lots of things which people call PD, which might just be the mandatory staff training that goes on from time to time. These things have to happen, and we've got other sort of training that has to happen in things like safeguarding and to make sure that everyone's compliant with these sorts of things. But what I wanted to do through our relationships with external providers is give staff something that we couldn't give them. I think it's so important to realise as teachers and school leaders that we don't know everything, and that we need to involve ourselves with organisations outside of the immediate school that you're working in. So firstly, of course, as I've discussed, we have a relationship with the Chartered College of Teaching, and through that, it's not only through membership and fellowship, it's through engaging with the different courses that they offer. Something which our staff have really enjoyed is the Certificate in Evidence Informed Practice, which is a fantastic course, and I really enjoyed it. I started the course myself last year because what it does is it breaks down the barriers between research and evidence and what we do inside the classroom. I think sometimes as teachers, we see educational research as something distant, as something difficult to engage with. And what we really want is just a summary. We want to get to the number of, or we want to understand how we can really use this to better affect our practice. And we also want to think about the fact that educational research isn't something lofty. We are all educational researchers, and everything we do and the reflection that we do in our lessons and sharing that with each other takes us all forward as individuals. So this is something that we've worked with. And in fact, we've had a couple of teachers this year taking it to the next stage to go on to the chartered teacher status. So they're working on that. Other organisations we've worked with, of course, we do the MPQ programs with the UCL, Institute of Education. Something we've tried to do there to personalise it is we have quite a number of staff as trained as facilitators. So we take the course, we teach it within the school, and we make sure that our ethos permeates through the way that we teach that. So that's been very successful, and Mandy's been a facilitator.
And I think one of the other lovely things about that is that was a really nice professional opportunity for me as well to be trained as a facilitator. It was a really nice professional chance for me to sort of extend myself and to learn something a bit different. So even though we were trained as facilitators so we could deliver that course to people in our school, actually we gained an enormous amount from it, definitely. And
it's just so funny you should say this, because we both work mainly in the secondary school, but we're a through school. But through this course, we had to work with a lot of teachers from what we call the junior school. And that was really interesting because we had to try our best to support these people through their course, and we learned a little bit more about them and a little bit more about every day that we worked with and what they do. So I think that really helped us as a school just share some more ideas and feel a little bit more connected. Something else that we've been working on as well, we tried to look at things for some of our more experienced managers. So this year we started working with the Chartered Management Institute, and we've had a few fellows of the Chartered Management Institute, and 4 of our teachers this year have become chartered managers. And this was a brilliant opportunity for them to start reflecting on how they manage and how they work with people, and look at what their successes has been and how they might change the way that they've worked with their staff in the future. Something that's very fashionable just now and we are very committed to is well-being. One of the 3 pillars of an NLCS school is pastoral care, and we take that very seriously. So we have teamed up with the Wellbeing Distillery in Australia, who used to be linked to Geelong Grammar. And what we're doing with them is our staff are starting a wellbeing certificate, where they're going to have mini sessions online. They're going to look at elements of wellbeing science, and they're going to take those into their lessons. So we've got quite a broad offering, and all of these things that we offer are voluntary. Staff can choose what they like to do, or they can choose to go in a different direction. And we've supported staff through, for example, master's level qualifications in education in their subject in lots of different areas.
And it's, it sounds like we're training all our teachers up so they leave, but ultimately, the goal of a really good professional development program is that we provide teachers with the knowledge and the understanding to move on should they want to, or to stay and increase their sort of their own practice. So I think there's lots of in our school about accreditation and people adding to their professional portfolio, as it were. And then it comes to sort of my side, which is very much about creating that professional learning community and having those professional learning conversations. And as I said, when you're in the UK, it's easier. It's easier to sort of like get lots of teachers together. We are very lucky that we're part of a fantastic schools group that we do communicate with each other on a regular basis. So the teachers from London come here, we go out to Singapore, South Korea come to us. So we're very, very lucky in the fact that we've got lots of links with other schools. Marco, did you want to just say about the Middle Leaders Conference as well? Because that's on Marco's new thing, which I think is going to be fantastic. Yeah,
we're really excited. Absolutely, Mandy. We're really excited to be welcoming middle leaders from all of the different international schools at the end of October, who are coming to Dubai for our first annual Middle Leaders Conference. And interestingly enough, we have Dame Alison Peacock, who's going to be joining us live from the Chartered College for question and answers and conversation with Dame Alison, as we've called it. We have some academics coming out for the UK. And this is a lovely opportunity because, of course, we have Zoom meetings and this sort of thing between the schools. But this is a lovely opportunity to give our teachers a chance to work together, to work with noted academics, and to give something to the teachers. As of course, as Mandy says, we do hope that everybody will stay with us in the school, but if they don't, we hope that they will move to another school within our group, because we really want to nurture the fantastic staff that we work with.
So what I do is very much on a day-to-day basis. So one of my favorite things that I do in my job is I run what we call the teacher discussion group. And it happens every 2 weeks. And all we do is we choose an article. So sometimes that's me choosing an article, sometimes just a little bit of a CCT thing. Impact Magazine, big shout out for this. It's fantastic, full of articles, very current, based on research, but really, really, really interesting on a huge range of topics. So it might be someone who's doing a master's that's read a fantastic article. It might be someone who's just particularly interested in one area. So these articles are chosen. They are always reasonably academic, with some basis of research. And then we get together on a Friday morning and I provide treats, often Marks and Spencer's treats, which always go down well. And we just discuss, and we have everybody from pre-KG teachers, so tiny, tiny ones, all the way up to people who exclusively teach in the sixth form. And it's amazing how that sort of commonality in so many of these issues. And we've talked about masculinity, we've talked about routines, we've talked about cognitive overload, we've talked about, neurodevelopment in teenagers. We've talked about so many different topics, and it's just that chance to start the day with this wonderful professional learning conversation. And sometimes it results in change. I remember we talked about quiet children. It was a particularly popular topic, and actually what happened was that we decided as a school that we were going to stop using quiet as a sort of almost criticism. When teachers say, oh, your child's very quiet, they need to contribute more. And we've changed our language and changed our understanding of those more quiet children in our classrooms. So I love the teacher professional group. It's teacher discussion group. It's a real high point of my teaching. Then we go all the way down to our pop-up PD, and that is sessions that are offered by teachers. So it might be a thing that they think they're particularly good at, or we've identified that they're good at, so it might be their questioning, it might be a new educational software that they're using, it might be something that they've found interesting in their studies, so whether it's mental health or whether it's, I've learned this jazzy new starter, so they're very, very small, and a few people go to these. We run them every week. but it's a really powerful professional development opportunity for the people running the sessions as well as the people attending. And sometimes this is teachers' first taste of giving professional development to their peers, which it's amazing how scared teachers get of offering professional development to other teachers. They can stand in front of a class and talk for hours and it'd be fine. As soon as they're put in front of their peers, they get much more nervous. So it's a real sort of professional opportunity for them. So we have that, we have the teacher discussion group, but we also make sure that we're always critically reflecting upon our practice. So this week is self-observation week. We're all having to video ourselves. Have you done that yet?
No, I'm still to video myself.
I'm still to video myself as well. I'm going to make myself just do a completely ordinary lesson, like as it is. And then we are given time in our after school PD slot to actually look at those and critically reflect on those. And then get together as having those conversations with our peers and actually say, look, we noticed this. Did anyone do this particularly well? So there's lots and lots of lovely accreditation and really stretching career development, but also that consistent approach on let's improve our practice, let's talk about our practice, let's share good practice with each other on a sort of daily basis. And I think all of those layers are really, really important. And the agenda is very much set by the teachers, very little of that, apart from, as Marcus said, things like safeguarding, very little of it is imposed in that way. People can take those directions that they want to. Absolutely.
And I think, what we've been really excited about is the number of staff who really are looking to improve themselves. So it's not a fact that we are, as we say, imposing these things on people, but staff want something and they want something meaningful. And if you can provide something that they think is important to them, they absolutely are happy to take part.
It's almost too much. People are like, there's so much PD. There's nowhere to hide. Right.
Shall we move on?
We're going to talk about overseas. What I'm going to do first of all, because it is the CCT live, is I'm just going to just make us a very nice cup of tea. So we're going to try this teapot.
Well, we were just hoping.
We were a bit worried that it was it's a bit weak, Marco. Sorry. Is that okay? You're not going to want to drink that, are you?
That'll probably have to do.
Sorry. So
we don't get full marks on the tea for the CCT,
but we have got proper cups of tea. They're not just props; they're actual cups of tea.
So, in terms of teaching overseas, I think I'll start with some things that you're going to think about, and Mandy's got some pros and cons about teaching overseas. Teaching overseas is something that lots of people are interested in, and it's something that I have found immensely rewarding. But to get it right and to have a great time teaching overseas, there's some things you really do need to think about. So all schools are not made equal anywhere in the world, and that is absolutely the same for teaching overseas. So I really would say, number one, research the schools you're applying for. There are things you can look at, like we would look at for all schools, like the results of the school, and you need to consider how important that is for you. If you think about the curriculum, we teach in an IB school. You might be teaching in a school that teaches GCSEs and A-level. Some schools will have the American curriculum, or some schools actually would have a hybrid curriculum where they may have GCSE and then go into the IB. So looking at that and understanding the types of professional development that you might need to do to take part with that. Thinking really importantly about the school's values. That's something we can always find on the school's website, but do your values as a teacher match the school's values, and does your experience match the experience that the school is looking for? There's lots of other places you can look, like on the TES forums and different sites to review of schools. But one thing I would caution you about, I sometimes think those sites are full of people that haven't enjoyed themselves, and sometimes it's better to try and, take a little bit more of an academic approach to what you're going to be doing. There are lots of different types of schools out there as well. There are groups of schools, there are individual schools, and then what I would think about if you're looking at a group of schools, and there's many famous names that are linked to the UK private schools like NLCS, there's groups of international schools, but having a look at, if they are a brand from the UK, what their relationship is like with the home school. One thing that really has kept me at NLCS is a strong relationship with the UK and a strong relationship with other schools. And that for me is lovely, because you're part of a community, you're part of a network, both professionally and in terms of where you might want to go in your career in the future.
And in fact, if everyone who, since COVID has ended, who gets a job in any of our schools in Singapore, in South Korea, in Dubai, they will be interviewed by the London school, but they will also spend a week in the London school, meeting all the other teachers, but also spending a lot of time in the lessons there so they can really understand the ethos and what it's like. We are not just a franchise, which some of them are, and you need to perhaps ask those questions. It's not a criticism of them, but we are very, very closely aligned with our mother school, and a lot of the other named schools might not be. So that's a question to ask at interview or in the early stages of the process.
Yeah, absolutely. You might want to think also about the location of your school. I mean, we live right in the middle of a very bustling and shiny city of Dubai, and that comes with lots and lots of advantages, but it's not the lifestyle for everyone. Do you want a school that's a boarding school? There's a lot of boarding schools out there. There are schools in the countryside. There's places all around the world. Does the country that you're going to as well suit your lifestyles? Does it suit your values as a person? Are you going to have to go to a country where you're going to have to learn to speak a foreign language, and are you willing to do so? Are you going to go to a country that's not as developed as where you come from and take the adventures that go along with that too? I mean, there's such a variety of schools overseas, which is really a very exciting prospect. So these are things that I would really think about when you're applying for schools. The last thing I would say about your application, I think this goes for any school, but having looked at a lot of applications in my time, I would say you need a winning application. And my advice would be, ask yourself why you're going to that school. As I said before, think of the values and experiences and how they align with your values and your experiences, and make sure that you make that clear. Think about what sets you apart and why that school wants you. Some international positions are extremely competitive and they will have lots and lots of applications. So you want your application to really stand out. Use the language of the school within your application. For example, at NLCS, we often talk of having a scholarly ethos, and a scholarship been something that's really important to us. So if you're applying for NLCS, for example, you might want to talk about how that aligns with your particular values, and never write a generic letter and send it off to every single school you're applying to, because people will spot it straight away and you will go to the bottom of the pile as somebody who they might think just wants to go on a nice holiday abroad and isn't serious about what they want to do. And I'm sure that isn't the case for anybody watching, but that would be my advice in terms of your applications.
Question that just popped up: was it a big transition from teaching in the UK to teaching in Dubai? What was the biggest change? I think for both of us, because we didn't go from the UK to Dubai, I think that's important. I think Dubai, there isn't a huge change in teaching. One thing we have noticed that the children are very well behaved. So I taught in London for many, many years, and certainly I found that the behaviour of the children here is delightful. I think it's about the school, really. I think for some people, if they choose the wrong school, then the transition between where they are and where they're going to go is going to be huge. I think Dubai is quite a safe place for your first thing. I mean, I went from being in London to going to South Korea, into a tiny island called Jeju. It's one of the most beautiful places in the world. I think you should all go there. But the school was open, and we were very, very few in numbers. We were a complete minority on an island that very few people spoke English outside of our educational community. And so, yes, it was a huge culture shock. It was also a boarding school. I had experience of being in a boarding school, but I hadn't actually worked in one. I'd lived in one because my husband was a housemaster, and it still didn't prepare me for just the sheer number of hours. It was amazing, and I do miss that aspect. I miss that boarding aspect. So it very much depends on the school and where you go first. But certainly I think coming to Dubai there's not a huge shift in
it's a very easy place to acclimatise yourself.
What about America?
Well, it was so interesting. That was my second job in America, yes. And the thing that I discovered when I went there was, number one, the Americans in the city I was living in, Chicago, found it quite difficult to understand a Scottish accent, and I'm not sure I blame them for that. But Interestingly, I think the cultural differences were more pronounced when I went there, because you were in a minority. The thing about Dubai, I suppose, is that expatriates are the majority of the population, obviously from all over the world. But one thing I do think, and I don't know if you agree, Mandy, is that when you go abroad, it's a great way to meet new people, because everyone is very open to making friends. So it's, if you're concerned about if you might make friends or you might meet people, people are very open, especially in the immediate school, and really supportive of each other.
Did you teach the UK curriculum even though you're based abroad? When I moved to Korea, we taught British curriculum, and when we taught IB at sixth form. In Dubai, we teach the IB. And there are lots of IB schools around. I am a huge fan of the IB. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful curriculum. But we're also very much based in Britishness. So lots of our kids leave here and go back to British schools, and they don't find any problem with that transition. So our curriculum is the best of Britishness in an IB school. But don't be put off by applying to a school that's an IB school if you've never taught the IB. So that's one thing I should say. You don't have to have taught the IB to go to an IB school. We've got job adverts coming out soon, and don't feel that, IB train everybody. We can offer training. It's lovely to start a new curriculum. Do most overseas schools offer a settling in period and help you find accommodation? It depends on where it is. So settling in period, our new staff arrive a few weeks before term starts, and we help them settle in. We do offer accommodation, so we accommodate everybody. Some people choose to find their own accommodation, and this gets into the idea of overseas schools come with a package. Now that depends on where you are. So Dubai schools, the package will include a salary, a accommodation allowance, or accommodation given to you by the school. But the also attractive thing to families is we have free school places for children of teachers in the school. So it is, as families and as single people, I think it's a very, very attractive prospect. Obviously, those packages differ where you go. And there are some parts in the world, I know a lot of European schools that, I would love to work in Europe. But they don't offer the same level of packages, but every school is different. Every school is different. So I can't offer a sort of blanket to all schools do this. We certainly do accommodate people and allow them to settle in.
And I think that's interesting, Mandy, because, with a lot of schools, especially in Europe, not offering accommodation in the same way, and the schools in the Far East as well, and all of Asia tend to offer accommodation, you might want to think about the sort of financial pros and cons, shall we say, of moving abroad, because some places are going to be more lucrative than others. And some cities, which when you look at the wages seem as if you have big dollar signs rolling around in your eyes, aren't as lucrative as they seem, because when you go there, they're actually really expensive places to live. So, doing a little bit of research about your wages and what that will buy in the country that you're going to is certainly worthwhile.
And a point you made earlier to me is about pensions as well. In the UK, you have fantastic teacher pensions. You have to be quite disciplined over here and make sure that you are saving for your future. There is a thing called a gratuity in most international schools, where you get to the end of your service and you get a sort of lump sum equivalent to how many years you've served. So there are financial benefits. I'm not especially over here, but not all schools offer all of those things, and you do need to weigh up how much you're going to spend and with how much you think you're going to save.
Absolutely. Are there opportunities for professional growth?
I think more so. One of my disadvantages of teaching overseas is it's very transient. People move in and out all the time, and that's students and colleagues. You get kids going, I'm leaving school on Monday because my dad's got a new job in Singapore or back in London. But that does mean that there's more movement in schools, whereas perhaps the school that taught at in London, they were going to stay there forever. But here there's a lot more movement, a lot more opportunities for growth. Although I would say that a lot of teachers come internationally where they've been a position of responsibility, and they'll come as a classroom teacher. So be prepared to, look, I'm a head of department, I'm only going to go for head of department jobs. Be flexible, because there is often space and room in international schools for that movement.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that you've got some few pros and cons.
Well, we're already nearly out of time.
Oh, so we are.
We didn't think we
No.
knew that talking wasn't going to be a problem. We need to sort of wrap it up. We're going to end by talking just about the membership opportunities. I would really put a big shout out for becoming members of the CCT. You know, we've only really scratched the surface of the ways that it benefits us, the way that it benefits our teachers.
Absolutely. And if you want to become a member of the Charter College, please do have a look at their website. This particular session is going to be available on their social media accounts, so you can have a look later if you want to re-listen to anything we've said or share it with any of your friends. But it really has been our pleasure to speak to you today, and I hope much of what we said has been useful, or some of what we said has been useful.
Yeah. And look out for those job adverts.
Absolutely.
TESS, just like it is in the UK. Just go on TESS.
Oh,
is there a Charter College affiliation in? Yes.
Yes.
There is.
Members, you can be a member or a fellow living here, and as I say, we have a fellows group that we started last year. So yeah, there's opportunities to work together.
Definitely. I think we've done membership options. Right. Thank you very much. We're going to leave now. But if you have any questions, carry on asking, and we'll see if we can get back to as many as possible. Thank you very much.
Bye for now.
Bye.